81% of Americans think abortion should be illegal in the last 3 months of pregnancy. That's according to a 2018 Gallup poll, compared to the 13% think that it should be legal. The remaining 4% say it all depends. So let's bring in our group tonight. Planned Parenthood's Director of Political Communications, Erica Sacken, CEO and President of Concerned Women for America, Penny Young-Nance, and the White House correspondent at the Daily Caller, Sagar Enjeti, who just asked the president about Northam's comments. Welcome to all of you. Glad to have you here tonight for this discussion.
Thanks, Shannon.
Sagar, I want to start with you because you talked to the president just a short time ago. What did he say about this?
Yeah, I asked the president about Governor Northam's comments. He said he was actually shocked that he would hear that from him. He thought he was a good person based on his discussions with him. I asked him whether he thought this was infanticide. That's not something that he was willing to delve into. But what he did say is he referenced his comments from the 2016 debates in which he said that Democrats would literally rip a baby out of the womb. And he thought that this really exemplified that policy. Broadly, he predicted to me that this would help the pro-life movement at large because he said people are just so outraged about late-term abortion legislation.
Okay, I want to just revisit what the governor said today, and he's pushing back tonight on the characterization of what he said. But he was talking about if a late-term abortion, apparently if a woman is in labor, there's a late-term abortion, it's not successful. The baby in some way survives. And he said, to clarify, this is about severely disabled or non-viable babies. But he said if it does, it would be delivered, it would be kept comfortable and resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired. And then there would be a discussion between the physicians and mother about what to do next. And Erica, to most people, they hear that. They're going to hear a child has survived the delivery. And now there's going to be a discussion about what to do with it. We're not talking about abortion there. We're talking a baby that's born alive, has somehow survived the procedure. I covered Kermit Gosnell for a month, that trial in Philly. That's why he's in jail.
Well, so I want to be really clear. I think even Governor Northam has clarified that in that conversation, he wasn't talking about abortion. He was talking about circumstances where a woman may have a wanted pregnancy and then finds out later in life, in the pregnancy, that it won't be viable, it won't survive the womb. And in fact, when we look at when late-term abortions happen, the vast majority of abortions in this country actually happen quite early in pregnancy. But if they do happen later, it is almost exclusively because a woman's health is at risk, a woman's life is at risk, or because her pregnancy won't actually be viable. And in fact, in New York, that's what happened to the woman who started the coalition to pass the New York law. It was a wanted pregnancy, and she found out very late, unfortunately, that her baby wouldn't survive outside the womb. She made the decision she felt was right for her and wanted to make sure that other people in her state could actually get the medical care they needed in their hometown instead of having to travel outside of the state.
Can we be clear, though, if the baby does survive, as was the case in Kermit Gosnell, if a baby does survive a late-term attempted abortion, should the baby receive care at that point, outside the womb?
Absolutely, and if a baby is born alive, it does receive care. But at the end of the day, these bills aren't actually about that. What the bills do is, in New York and Rhode Island, it says if Roe versus Wade is overturned, which, as we've seen, is more and more likely, women will still be able to access abortion safely and legally. And in Virginia, the bill actually doesn't even go that far. All it says is that it repeals restrictions that are medically unnecessary, like waiting periods, so that women can make their own decisions about if and when they want to become a parent.
But we heard the sponsor of that bill, Penny, when she was pushed and asked about this, said even if the woman is in dilation, showing that she is about to have a baby, she said in her own words that the bill would allow this abortion to move forward.
Well, I completely disagree with that characterization of these bills. These are infanticide bills. Kathy Tren's bill that didn't pass, barely didn't get out of committee, barely.
5-3.
Would have allowed for abortion, as she characterized, up until birth. So I want to be very clear about what happens. The job of an abortionist, these aren't doctors, these are abortionists, is to make sure that the baby dies before she gets out of the birth canal. A late-term abortion is done in two ways, either through dismemberment or through a partial birth abortion ban where the skull is crushed, or both. There is a little bit of chance that a baby can still be breathing, but usually not. What he's characterizing is a delivery, and sometime in the cases where there's a problem with the mother, there's an early delivery. In that case, there is care given to that baby, but that's not what they were talking about. They were talking about Kathy Tran's soulless bill. And unfortunately, Governor Northam has gone from a compassionate pediatrician to a soulless politician. And he either needs to apologize, walk it back, or resign.
Well, he is a pediatric neurologist. He tweeted tonight, "I have devoted my life to caring for children, and any insinuation otherwise is shameful and disgusting."
Well, we're talking about what he said. Then he needs to come out and condemn Kathy Tran's bill. I'll look forward to that tomorrow.
Okay.
I'll look for that on Twitter.
Something I thought was interesting that I didn't know, Ramesh Ponnuru he wrote a piece tonight about this in National Review, and he said the numbers, and I went and confirmed this with CDC and Guttmacher. He said, because I've always heard that these 20-plus week abortions, late-term abortions, are extremely rare, and they are a small percentage of overall abortions, but apparently the numbers, according to them, it's 15,000 or more of these happen in the U.S. every year. He says that's more than the people who die from gun, homicide, violence. I mean, both of those are serious conversations we need to be having.
Well, again, first I want to clear something up here. There is no such thing as abortion up until birth, and none of these bills, and that's just.
But you would be against that if a woman wanted to.
It's not how medical science works. It's simply not how medical science works.
Just tell me, should it be illegal?
It's not how medical science works, and it's not what any of the bills do.
What you're saying,
and I'm sorry, but I really have to say that in these conversations, we're forgetting about the women involved, because when you're talking about a woman who is accessing abortion later in her pregnancy, it is really because she might die or because her health is at risk, or because her pregnancy will never be viable.
When should it be illegal?
It shouldn't ever be the case that a woman is forced to carry an unviable pregnancy to term. Penny, I'm really trying to have a conversation with you about this, because it is an important conversation to have in this country. For a woman who is making the very difficult and personal decision about whether and when to become a parent, it shouldn't be up to a politician in Washington to tell her what to do.
I think one thing that we can agree on is that somebody who's facing this in the third trimester, it's not a pleasant situation for anyone involved, and it's got to be one that is wrought with a lot of consideration. And 15,000 people a year apparently in this country are going through that. I think most Americans would want it to be more rare than that, based on those numbers. Tucker, final word to you.
Well, I think what I saw from the president was there's a lot of discussion I've seen about whether his sincerity of the views. He had a real look of disgust whenever he was talking about this, and it seemed to really strike a nerve with him. And I was surprised with the level of levity that the level of seriousness that he gave it whenever he was making those comments.
Well, it seems like these bills are doing one thing. They're firing up people on both sides to be more active on this conversation and in legislation on both sides of this. So we'll see if it winds up at the Supreme Court and what happens there. But thank you all for a conversation about it today.
Thank you, Shannon.